So back in the application, we need to have a way to create an in-memory cache because we need to keep track of who is logging in and if the login was successful or unsuccessful. Now, just so I can show you exactly what I'm talking about, so let's imagine that this is the actual cache that we're going to be building, right? So in the cache, we're going to keep track of the user and the number of times that they try to log in. And then every time someone tries to log in, we'll check to see how many times they've already tried it. And then if it passed, let's say for instance 5, at this point, then we can go ahead and say, hey, lag this account. Or if it's less than 5 and then the login was successful, then at this point we know that maybe they tried a few times, they didn't get the password right, and then we can remove them from the actual cache. So we need to go grab a dependency from Google, and that dependency will be able to allow us to create an in-memory cache, and then from there we can continue building the actual implementation for this. So I'm gonna go in Maven so that I can get the dependency, and I'm just gonna click on the first one here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and just copy this and go back to the application, and I'm just gonna go ahead and go to the POM file and then put that dependency in. So POM file, and I'm just gonna put it anywhere here, and I'm just gonna remove this comment because I don't really need it. And I don't think this is the version that I want. I think the version that I want is 28 and .1 and then -GRE. So I think that's the version that I'm using, not this old version that we just had. So once we have this dependency in our application, we'll have access to some very fancy way to put a cache together. So let's go ahead into the service, and let's go ahead and create a service. So we're gonna create a new class, and we're gonna go ahead and call it, let's call it login attempt service, because it's a service, and that's gonna be a class. So here, the first thing I'm gonna do is annotate this at service. So service. What I need to do now, I need to define the number of maximum attempt that I'm gonna allow and an increment for the every time they log in. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start typing, and this is gonna make sense real quick. So static final, and that's gonna be an int, and I'm gonna call this maximum number of attempt. So of attempt. So this is the number of times that they are allowed to not get their password right. So if they tried 5 times and they didn't get it right, then their account will be locked. So the next thing that I want is an increment. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that down there, and this is going to be 1, and I'm just gonna call this the attempt increment. So I'm gonna remove this, and then here I'm gonna put underscore increment. So what this is gonna do is every time they try to log in and they didn't get the password or username right, we're gonna add 1 to their cache. So as I just showed you here, so if they try once, then that number is gonna be 1. Let's say for user 1, right? They try to log in and they failed. So we're gonna put this attempt to 1. And then next time they try it again, we're gonna do this 1. And then next try it again. If they don't get it right, we're gonna do 1. So that's what this is gonna do here. And then with that 5, we're just gonna check to make sure that it's either equal or past 5, and then we can say, hey, okay, all right, we need to lock your account because you passed the maximum number of attempt that you have to actually try to log in. So now I'm gonna go ahead and define the actual cache. So let's do private, and let's call the loading cache, and as you can see, this is coming from Google, so the dependency that we just added. And then I'm gonna pass in a string and an integer. So I'm just gonna call this, let's call it login attempt cache, okay, because this is the actual cache. So what I'm doing here is I'm defining a key and a value for the cache. So if you remember here, the key is going to be the user, okay? Because every user is going to be unique, or the username, and then that's going to be the value, okay? So once I have this all set up, then this will make more sense, as you can see. So the string here and the cache, this string right here, it represents the user, and the integer represent the number of times that they try to log in. So now we need to define a constructor so that we can initialize the actual cache. So I'm gonna do public, and I'm just gonna call this login attempt cache service because that's the constructor. And then here I'm gonna call the super class. So I'm gonna do super, and then after that I'm gonna set the actual cache here. So I'm gonna call this cache, and then I'm gonna say equal, and then I'm gonna call the cache builder here, and then I'm gonna do new builder. Oops. And then cache forever. So I'm gonna do expire after write, and then I'm gonna put 15, and that's gonna be 15 minutes. So you can actually do this however you want. Like you can put how many minutes you want, and then I'm gonna set the size of the cache. So then here I'm gonna do lowercase maximum size. As you can see, it takes so long, and let's say for now we're gonna do 100. So at any given time we will only have 100 entries in the actual cache. So 100 of those, like 1, 2, 3. So we're gonna have 100 of those at any given time. Again, this is just for this app. You can actually change this, like for whatever number you think is appropriate for your security concern. So then after that, I'm gonna put this on a new line. We're gonna call the build, and then in the build we're gonna pass in a new cache loader, and then here we're gonna do for string, and again integer, and we're gonna call the constructor, and then after that we can actually pass in some parameters here. So we're gonna do public integer, and we're gonna call the load, and then we're gonna pass in a string, which is gonna be the key, and then here we're just gonna return 0, and then we need a semicolon, and we need to import this, which is gonna come from Java concurrent time unit, and I'm gonna see if I can do a static import for this. And here we are. So this is something that you just have to know how to initialize the actual cache from Guava. So that's not something, you know, that's gonna be like, oh, you're gonna know this by heart. That's just the way that you have to initialize the cache depending on your needs, and that's what we're doing here. So that's just something that you just gonna have to just research, and then you just have to go through the actual documentation just so you know how to initialize the actual cache, you know, given the parameters that you pass in, or the type of parameters that you passed in. So in the next lecture, we're gonna be adding some of the methods that we need to either add a user from the login attempt, evict a user from the cache, or add a user in the cache, or check to see if they have, you know, maxed out their number of attempts.